Good evening. I think we can do better than that. Good evening. Welcome to the beautiful Bare Bones Steakhouse. My name is April Reed Cruz, co-CEO of Reed Financial Group. Many of you I know very well. Some of you I just met recently, and a few of you even had the pleasure of meeting for the first time this evening. We are so happy that you're here with us. We know it's because Bare Bones is so good and long-term care is such a riveting topic. But we are in for a treat tonight. I'll get to that in just a moment and introduce our wonderful guest speaker. The folders that you picked up when you came in today have some very helpful information in them. You really won't need very much that's in this folder as we go through the program this evening, but I would encourage you to look through those folders when you have the time to do so. There's a lot of helpful information about who we are at Reed Financial Group, our family firm, founded over 40 years ago by my father, our father, I should say, Gary Reed, who's here with us this evening. And I know he's looking forward to meeting some of you who he hasn't had the opportunity to meet yet. So do spend some time with those materials. The only thing that you really should need as we go through the program today, if you're a note taker like me, we included a couple of pages in there for you to do just that. There are some handouts in there that you're not going to need. They're just a value add, some additional resources regarding long-term care planning. You should not need those as we go through the program this evening because everything's going to be up here on the screen behind me. I would also like to acknowledge some very special guests that we have here with us this evening. You will see a little bit of a distinction between the name tags from one guest to the next. A lot of the name tags in this room tonight say VIP on them. Not that you're not all VIPs, but this is our way of distinguishing those who we already have a working relationship with. I see Brian admiring his. He's probably framing it later. But if you have questions about who we are and how we do things, then these are clients of ours who are in the room today, and I know they'll be happy to answer any questions that you have for them. You will also see a green sheet of paper. Abby's going to refer back to this towards the conclusion of the program today. I just mention it now so that you don't forget about it because this could be good for a $50 Bare Bones gift card later. So make sure you don't misplace that. As independent fiduciary advisors, a very important part of what we do at Reed Financial Group is select partners to work with. We do not have a quota that we have to meet, an employer that we work for. You are clients, you employ us. We work for you. And as independent fiduciary advisors, it's very important that we're really strategic in the companies that we choose to work with. A lot of you are familiar with a lot of those institutions. We work with a lot of different companies. One of those partnerships that has become a very integral part of what we do at Reed Financial Group is Financial Independence Group. They specialize in helping advisors throughout the country pair the most appropriate accounts for their clients with solutions. And the speaker that you're about to hear from, Alicia Barnett, has over 20 years experience in doing just that. She might be the only person I've ever met who can take long-term care conversations and actually make them interesting and entertaining. She's a treat. You all are in for a wonderful surprise. This is her third presentation today, starting in North Carolina. That's how passionate that she is about getting this information to people who need to hear it. So you are in for a treat. And without further ado, Alicia Barnett.
Thank you so much. I am excited to be here today. So good evening. This is a subject matter that I'm very excited to talk about. I know that sounds insane because it's not a fun topic for most people, right? I'm also going to talk about long-term care a little differently. Two things before I get started. If you're trying to figure out my age, just so you know, I started right out of grade school. We'll start with that. And also, I like to ask the audience, before I start, what is the first thing that you think of when you hear long-term care? Just shout it out. Anybody? Skilled nursing. What else? Expensive, absolutely. What else?
End of life.
End of life. Sometimes, yes. Anybody been a caregiver or experienced? If you don't mind me asking, what did they have a plan in place, or was it reactive? Very reactive. It's a very tough thing to reactively have to deal with. So I'm going to hopefully teach you some things that you don't know about long-term care planning, try to make it exciting, and also try to talk a little differently about long-term care. So with that being said, we're going to get started. So we're going to talk about some of the common misconceptions or myths when it comes to long-term care. The first myth is it won't happen to me. So I'm going to ask you to participate again. How many people in the room think they're going to need some type of care? Raise their hand. Okay, that's actually way more than I usually see. So most people don't raise their hands. It's typically about half the room. Most people think their neighbor's going to need care, but not them, right? And we'll talk a little bit, certainly more, about who actually needs care. But just know that there's a higher percentage that you'll need it than not if you live long enough. Let's talk about our next misconception. Medicare or Medicaid have me covered. How many people think the government is going to take care of us? I always get a chuckle every time I ask that question. Honestly, there's stipulations that go along with that. For example, Medicare, you have to be hospitalized at least 3 days. It covers up to typically 100 days of skilled care, and you have to be getting better. It's short-term care, not long-term care. Anybody familiar with Medicaid and how it works? Medicaid, you have to spend down your hard-earned assets. If you're married, you could leave your spouse impoverished, and you give up choices. Most of the time, Medicaid will only cover you in a facility. And I don't know about you, but if I'm going to need care, I'd like to receive it in the comfort of my own home. All right, so let's talk about the next myth. That's what my savings are for. Anybody familiar with the cost of care around here? It's expensive. I would encourage you to write this, if you're taking notes, write this website down, longtermcare.gov. There is a lot of fantastic information. Who needs care? What type of care is available? Maybe how long you might need it. But there is an excellent link you can click on for cost of care. It's going to redirect you back to the Genworth Cost of Care Survey. What's great about this website is you can actually put in your city or your zip code, and it will pull up the local cost of care. So it will actually show you what facility care might cost. And remember, these are averages. There's obviously above average facilities. In fact, if I have to go into a facility one day, I don't want to go in an average facility, right? So it's going to show you nursing home cost, assisted living cost, adult daycare cost, and home care cost. And you might not be able to see this. It's a little blurry for me. Could be my eyes. I'm not sure. But again, it's going to pull up the local cost. And then there's a neat little slide that projects out the future cost, because we're probably not going to need care today, right? It might be 10, 15, 20, 30 years before we need care. So notice here, and again, I'm not sure if you can see it, but we're looking at roughly, I believe that says in 2021, so these numbers are a little higher, $8,500 a month, we'll round, for nursing home. It's around $3,600 for assisted living, and around $4,500 a month for home health care. And believe it or not, round-the-clock home health care is around $12,000 a month. It is expensive. And what people fail to realize is if you don't have a plan, your money is your plan. So as we're going through this presentation, be thinking about this. Which asset would you liquidate first if you needed some type of care? Because again, by default, your money is your plan. And again, there's this neat little slide out here you can project future cost. So look at out 20 years. Now we're talking $15,000 a month for nursing home, around $6,000 for assisted living, and around, I believe that's $8,200 for home health care. So it's mighty expensive. So I would encourage you to take some time and just research your local cost. You might have kids spread out all across the country, and maybe you're not going to, if you need care one day, you're going to move where your kids are. So you can look anywhere in the country, this will show you. It's a really neat website. If you don't want to have to find where the cost of care is, by the way, you can just Google Genworth Cost of Care Survey and it will come up. So I do encourage you to play around with that website. All right, this is my favorite myth. My family will take care of me. I say this jokingly, but does your family know that? Right? In all seriousness. Again, a lot of people have kids spread out these days. In fact, raise your hand if your adult children are not living near you. Okay, a few. So actually, that's pretty impressive. Again, that's another question I ask. And typically, you see children spread out all over the country. Let me give you an example. Take my family. I'm the oldest daughter. My mom's been twice widowed. My biological dad died when I was 4 years old. My mom remarried. My stepdad passed away, unfortunately, at the beginning of the pandemic. So she's alone. She's 79. I have an older brother who is 10 minutes away. I have a sister who's roughly 4.5 hours away, and a younger brother who's 5 hours away. So mom got COVID 7.5, 8 months ago. She was pretty sick. Just to be clear, I have 16-year-old twin boys. I travel a lot. Okay, so I'm gone a lot. I went down and took mom food every day. I'm an hour and 15 minutes one way, just to repeat that. I took her food. I took her medicine. I looked through that glass door to make sure she was okay. Why? Because I love my mother, because that's what I'm going to do. Now ask me, how many times do you think my brother, who is 10 minutes away, went to go see mom? Anybody want to take a stab? Zero. Now if he was sitting here, I would tell that story. Why? Because he's just simply not a caregiver. He's going to come over, he's going to do the heavy lifting, he's going to fix the toilet if it breaks, he's going to put stuff in the attic, he's going to cut the shrubs. He is not going to be her caretaker. What is that going to look like when mom actually needs care? Long-term care doesn't bring families together. It tears families apart. What do you think is going to happen when I'm taking care of mom? You think I'm going to be resentful because my brother who's 10 minutes away is not helping? And my little brother who's 5 hours away is telling me what to do with mom's money? Again, long-term care doesn't bring families together. It tears families apart. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. So again, I said I was going to talk a little differently about long-term care. So I'm going to ask y'all another question. What would be the goal when climbing a mountain? To get to the top? Actually, it might be to get down that mountain successfully without breaking your neck and without breaking your back, right? What goes up must come down. So a lot of baby boomers have climbed that mountain. They've gone through what we call the accumulation phase. Save, 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 save. Then they begin retiring around 2017. So lots of baby boomers are retiring. And now what happens? They're going to spend, 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 spend. So that's why you're hearing a lot about retirement income and retirement income planning, especially from these guys, right? I'm sure you've had that conversation with them. So let me ask you something. What could be some of the issues during that, we'll call it distribution phase, when you're going back down the mountain? Anybody? What's going to happen? What's going to disrupt your income? Your health? Absolutely. Inflation? Good gracious, it's bad, isn't it? How about having enough retirement income? Are you going to outlive your assets? Market volatility. We're not seeing any of that, are we? Healthcare cost, as someone mentioned, and I should put up there inflation, because that is a biggie, right? Things have gotten really expensive. But more specifically, an income stream to pay for care. That's what we're really talking about. So in your retirement years, what would be a reason that your income needs would suddenly skyrocket? Let's say you're living well on $100,000 a year, and all of a sudden you have to take an additional 70 on top of your 100. So what would cause that to happen? Most would say some kind of health issue. If you're married, what if you or your spouse become frail and need some type of assistance, maybe in the home or in a facility? Where would you get, in that example, that additional $70,000 a year? Remember that question I asked? Which asset would you liquidate first to pay for care? So when your income needs suddenly skyrocket, where do you get the income? Most people are going to liquidate conservative assets like mutual funds, money sitting in the bank, savings accounts, annuities. Again, conservative assets. Long-term care is an income issue. It is not an asset issue. All right, so will this affect your retirement income plan? So can you earn enough interest in this environment to pay for care? Again, this is additional income that you're going to require. Don't forget about living expenses and paying for horseback riding lessons for your grandchild or the country club. Long-term care is an income issue. All right, so this is a diagram of what we call the great income gap. So let's say you retire at 65, you're living well on $100,000 a year, but at age 75, you begin having some health issues. Most people have done well enough to where they can probably absorb some of that cost. But let's say at age 80, you have a diagnosis of Alzheimer's and you need care for 10 years. That is what we call the great income gap. So how do we fill that gap? All right, so let's talk about some concerns. Let's talk about Alzheimer's. In 2022, 6.5 million Americans have been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. 1 in 9 over the age of 65 are diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Get this, 1 person every 33 seconds will be diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Do you think we're going to have a problem? The average Alzheimer's claim, by the way, is 8.2 years. That's a claim. That's not really, that doesn't include the care before or after you run out of money. 8.2 years. So we have a big problem ahead. By 2050, they're saying 12.7 million Americans will be diagnosed with Alzheimer's. I certainly hope they come up with a cure, for sure. All right, remember that question I asked at the beginning of the room. Do you think you're going to need care? I ask you to raise your hand. So the statistics, I hate statistics because it's like drawing a line in the middle, but nonetheless, 70% of people over the age of 65 are going to need some type of care. And actually, 1 in 5 will need care for 5 or more years. Here's the problem. Most people think they're in the 30%. And if they think they're in the 30%, they don't think it's going to happen to them, so they don't put a plan in place. But here's what we know. Most men and women who invited you into their life and promised to take care of will put a plan in place to make sure that the caregivers of the family are taken care of. Oftentimes, the spouse will take care of you if you're married. Why? Because they may feel obligated to, or their financial situation may dictate it. And by the way, taking care of the chronically ill can make you chronically ill. I saw my mom, it nearly killed her to try to take care of my dad. For 8 months he was sick before he passed away. And if the spouse can't do it, it's usually the family. Guess who it is? The oldest daughter in closest proximity. She may give up her job and move in with you, or you might move in with her, as any decent child would do, right? Your life doesn't end, someone else's does. Because your family's going to step in. This is really about love. Love first, family first, finances second. Because again, and I'll say this for those in the back that can't hear, Chris, long-term care doesn't bring families together, it tears families apart. I have a policy so that my kids will talk to each other when I pass away. It's as simple as that. They can supervise the care rather than provide the care. And financially, it's going to, pay most of the bill, right? That's a plus. So how do we mitigate the risk? There are two types of long-term care. And by the way, there are many, many more. So I should change that to say there are two main types of long-term care. There's traditional long-term care insurance and what I like to call asset-based long-term care. I like to use the analogy owning your policy versus renting it. Anybody familiar with traditional long-term care? Kind of has a bad rap in the industry right now. It is like renting. It is the cheapest way to buy the most amount of long-term care. However, rates can go up just like renting, right? In fact, I've been in the business for 27 years in long-term care alone. I have seen policies rate increases from anywhere from 15% to over 200%. That's a tough pill to swallow. But nonetheless, cheapest way to buy the most amount of long-term care. Just like homeowners, you stroke a check. If you need it, you have the leverage. If you die and never need care, there is no death benefit. Just like renting. If you want to quit, there's no exit strategy. So over the past few years, I've seen the landscape change in the industry, and they've come out with these new solutions called asset-based LTC. So these particular policies are written on life insurance or annuity chassis. If you live and need long-term care, there's pennies on the dollar leverage, tax-free. If you wake up an angel and never need any care at all, there's a death benefit. And if you quit, there is a walk away. You can get some or all of your money back, depending on the solution. So here is a concept or a 10,000-foot overview of asset-based LTC. So if this is your portfolio, most people have conservative, aggressive, and moderate assets, right? And what did we say earlier? If you need care, typically people will take from the conservative assets first. Well, the government has allowed certain life insurance or annuity policies to be accessed while alive, tax-free for long-term care. So we could potentially reposition an asset or income, so carve out a little bit, I like to call it the umbrella policy. In this example, it's a life insurance policy. It's going to give us a $125,000 death benefit. It's still an asset on the balance sheet, right? We just moved it from our right pocket to our left pocket. But if we need care, we can access that tax-free, and we've got additional funds to pay for long-term care expenses. That is the concept of asset-based LTC. So how do we fund these plans? There's a number of different ways. There's 4 ways to fund an asset-based long-term care plan. Highly appreciated non-qualified annuities. Everybody familiar with an annuity? If you work with these guys, I'm sure you are. Cash or cash equivalent, or what I like to call dead assets or rainy day funds. So money sitting in the bank, CDs, mutual funds, etc. Qualified dollars. You can actually utilize 401ks, IRAs, 403bs to fund a plan. And for a lot of people like me have a disproportionate amount of money because their employer matches, or that's the way you save, because pensions are few and far between. So you can actually utilize those dollars to pay for care. And then last but not least, you can use income. Not everybody's in a position of taking a lump sum and repositioning it, or maybe you just don't want to. Maybe from a cash flow perspective, you can stretch those payments out over time and still get pennies on the dollar leverage for long-term care. The difference is we're going to utilize a live, quit, or die vehicle versus renting it. So let's take a look at some examples, and please ask questions. I get really excited about the subject matter. Again, I know that's insane, but when I get excited, I talk a lot and fast. So slow me down if I'm going too fast, and please stop and ask me questions as I'm going along. So our first example here, we have a 70-year-old male and female. They have an existing annuity. So the way that it works with annuities, and we're going to use non-qualified because we're never going to get out of paying Uncle Sam. I'll explain that in a few minutes. So if you have an annuity, it starts at 50 and it grows to 100. Anybody know what happens when you take money out? You got to pay taxes on it, right? You have to pay taxes on the gains. So again, the government has allowed certain life insurance or annuities to be accessed while alive, tax-free for LTC. We could reposition that annuity. So let's say we had a $100,000 annuity, it grew to 150. We can move that money through a 1035 exchange, tax-free from company A to company B. And it's going to provide them, we'll call it $5,000 a month or $60,000 a year per person, tax-free if they use it for care. That $150,000 is going to turn into $450,000 day one for long-term care. So think of this $450,000 as a tax-free long-term care bank account. So they could use up to $5,000 a month until their tax-free bank account is gone. If you do the math, which that's not my strength, it will last them 7.5 years shared between the two. So one person or both, think of it as a bank account they can use for home health care. They can use it for nursing home, assisted living, adult daycare. Make sense so far? So the way that all of these solutions work is if you need care, your doctor has to certify that you can't perform 2 of 6 activities of daily living. So your regular everyday stuff: bathing, dressing, toileting, eating, transferring, and continence. So if you can't do 2 of 6 activities of daily living, or you have a severe cognitive impairment, then you satisfy an elimination. So an elimination is similar to a deductible. Every solution out there has a different elimination. So this particular solution has a 0-day wait in the home for benefits, a 90-day in a facility. So if you needed home care, you could receive up to $5,000 a month until that $450,000 is gone. Here's the beautiful thing. If you never need a dime of care, that $150,000 and whatever it's grown to, because it is an annuity, so you're going to see some tax-deferred growth, that annuity will go to your beneficiaries. So live and need long-term care, $1 turns into 3, so 150 turns into 450. Die and don't need care, again, that annuity passes to the beneficiary. If you want to quit, just like any annuity, you can get some or all of your money back depending on when you exercise the exit strategy, or surrender, as they call those. Our next example, we have a 60-year-old couple. They have $200,000 in a CD. I like to think of this right here as a timeline. So the base policy is a life insurance vehicle. This is a long-term care rider. So what this couple can do is they can reposition that $200,000 into a life policy that's going to provide them $104,000 per person, tax-free income, lifetime income stream to pay for care. Meaning if you have a 5-year, a 10-year, a 15-year claim, it's going to continue to pay as long as you live and need care. The way that it works is you're going to use your death benefit tax-free, because again, the government has allowed us to do that for long-term care expenses. Once we run out of our death benefit, the insurance company's going to continue to pay for as long as you live and need assistance. Looks a lot like the concept of asset-based LTC, doesn't it? Think of it almost as a high-deductible catastrophic plan. If you don't have a plan, your money is your plan. This is a more tax-efficient way to pay for care. And pennies on the dollar leverage. If both people need care, it's going to provide them $208,000 a year. Now, these pay out in a monthly benefit, but I wanted to show you the significance of what you get for the long-term care benefits. It would take 52% guaranteed return on your money to give you a lifetime income stream of $104,000. Can y'all do that, Gary? Because if you can, sign me up, right? If both people needed care, it would take 104% return on their money. And again, these are tax-free benefits. So the power of pennies on the dollar leverage and tax efficiencies. Here's the good news. If they don't need care, they wake up an angel and don't need any care, there is a second to die death benefit of $288,000. So live and need care, $104,000 a year lifetime income stream. Die and don't need care, $288,000. If you want to quit, these policies have what's called a cash surrender value. Will you get all of your money back in this particular solution? No. If you change your mind, you can get some of your money back. This is really a long-term care solution. The life insurance is secondary. You could put that same $200,000, we'll call it a plain vanilla life insurance policy, and you're going to get a heck of a lot more than a $288,000 death benefit. This is not an investment. This is really a long-term care solution. And oh, by the way, if you don't use it, you don't lose it. Make sense? Any particular questions on this funding strategy? Yes, ma'am.
You were talking about tax benefits.
Yes, ma'am.
Will that change depending on who's in office or what?
It should not. They might change them for future policies. It should not. I can't guarantee that. I mean, I don't know if y'all can give a better answer there, but it should. Did y'all hear what she asked? So what she asked is if that tax-free status could change based on who's in the office. I don't believe it can. I think they would grandfather it in, but you know, I can't say with 100% certainty. But my understanding is you would still get the tax benefits from those written prior to any type of changes. Great question. Yes, sir. Great question. Someone always asks that. So let's go back to this. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter. I'll just speak to that. So actuarially speaking, what the insurance companies do is they're going to guess that some of you might not ever get into their pocket. So every dollar you put in gives you $3 of care. So $1 of it's your money, $2 of it is their money, right? So they're going to guess that some of you will never get into the insurance company's pocket. Also, there is an internal charge on the annuity. Now, you'll never lose your principal, but there is a charge for that. So again, this is not an investment vehicle. So if you were to put that $150,000 in a regular fixed annuity, you're going to earn a lot of interest. So you're really essentially going to get back your principal plus maybe a little bit of interest if you die and don't use it. So actuarially, they're able to do that because, again, think of it as a high deductible catastrophic plan. In this example, they're using the death benefit first, right? So that's your deductible. If you don't ever get into this, then the insurance company's winning. Now they have the longest claim there, I believe, at this particular carrier is going on 20 years. So they do pay it out, but how many claims do you know last 25 years? That's how they're able to do it. But even if you never get into the insurance company's pockets money, it's a tax efficient way. Instead of using your money, it's a tax efficient way to pay for care. And oh, by the way, if you need more care than what you put in there, you're going to get those additional funds. Same goes with the life insurance. If you put that $200,000 again in a plain vanilla life insurance policy, that death benefit is going to be much bigger. Typically what you're going to see on the life insurance policies is if you die, someone's pretty much going to get your premium back. This is kind of a sweet spot at age 60, so you're seeing, roughly $88,000 more than you put into it. Does that make a little bit more sense? And there's internal cost associated with it. That's why your cash surrender value, if you were to exit, is not as much as you might get 60, 70, 80% if you're lucky. But people don't get rid of these. The idea here is to put this in a lockbox and hope you never need it, right? But if you do, then you have the leverage, tax-free leverage for care. That's a great question. Any other questions before I move on to the next? Yes.
The cost of these products for someone 70 plus, do you make any sense?
So absolutely. So he asked if the cost for somebody 70 plus makes sense for these solutions. So we have two chassis. We have a life insurance chassis and we have an annuity chassis. The life insurance chassis is going to be more competitive the younger you are. Why? Because for older, 5 out of 5 people die and the cost of insurance goes up, right? So you're going to get less leverage if you're 70 on the life insurance chassis. On the annuity chassis, it doesn't matter if you're 50 or you're 85. Your dollar is still going to turn into $3 for long-term care. Now, if you're 80 and you buy the long-term care annuity, you might see less gains in the contract. So if you die and don't use it, if you put in 100, for example, someone might get 100 back. If you're 60 and you buy the annuity, the leverage for care is the same, except for you have the potential to see more gains in the contract because the internal cost of insurance is less. Does that make sense? There really is a solution. Here's what I'll tell you. There's not a one-size-fits-all approach. It's the same with underwriting. If you have diabetes, for example, 5 carriers might look at diabetes 5 different ways. We have everything from a guaranteed issue product to products that leverage even more of your money that benefits you if you're super healthy. So that is why it's important to meet with these guys and gals back here so that you can actually sit down and you talk about your situation, because 15 of you could have 15 different policies, and that's just the way that it works. And these aren't the only kind as well. What we're talking about today are some of the main funding opportunities or solutions. There's life insurance with chronic illness riders. There's annuity with income doublers. There are a lot of solutions. These are just some of the more popular solutions that give you more LTC. The life insurance is secondary. The annuity is also secondary. You're not going to see any fantastic income riders on any of these solutions, if that makes sense. All right, any questions on this particular example before I move on to the next one? This one is my favorite. RMDs, anybody know what RMDs stand for? Required minimum distributions. Now they keep raising the age, so you don't, at 70 and 71, you don't have to take RMDs. But listen, in my opinion, taxes are on sale. Anybody, raise your hand if you think your taxes are going down. I always get a chuckle out of that one too. So taxes are on sale. What we can do is utilize qualified dollars in a tax efficient way to get tax-free benefits for care. So what do I mean by that? This solution is kind of a McDonald's Happy Meal solution. So you could buy your hamburger, fries, and drink separately, but what we can do is we can repurpose or move a qualified account from our left pocket to our right pocket. In this example, bear with me because there are a lot of moving parts here, but don't get caught up in all those details. Just know that you can use qualified money to fund a plan. The way that it works, if we had $200,000, we're going to transfer from company A to company B. Company B is going to give you a 25% bonus on your $200,000 day one. Then they're going to turn on an income rider. If you're working with Reed Financial Group, you know what an income rider is. It's going to spit off $25,000 a year for 10 years. For those sitting in the back, I'm going to say this real loudly. You will never get out of paying Uncle Sam. What we're doing is we're spreading the tax liability out over 10 years. Think of this almost as a Roth conversion. At the end of year one, you are going to receive a 1099 for $25,000. But that $25,000 day one is going to go into a life policy that's going to give you tax-free LTC. So you're essentially starting RMDs early while taxes are on sale. Again, you're spreading that tax liability out. And here's what that does. That's going to give them $63,000, we'll call it, a year, tax-free, day one. Something happens to either of them in 6 months, 3 months, a year, 10 years, that's tax-free. If they both need care, it's going to give them $127,000 lifetime income stream to pay for care. I like to call it a McDonald's Happy Meal because all you're doing is you're giving the insurance company money. They're doing everything for you. They're taking the distribution out. They're sending it into the life policy. All you're doing is putting it in your lockbox. If you need care, you can turn that sucker on and have a lifetime income stream of either $63,000 or $127,000. Now, if they die and don't use it, day one, it buys them a tax-free death benefit of $177,000. Is that less than what they put into it? It sure is. But anybody know what happens if you were to pass a $200,000 IRA to your kids? They're paying taxes on it. You're giving them a gift of a tax-free death benefit. You've already paid the taxes for them. And furthermore, if you give them a $200,000 IRA, they have to take it out in 10 years or less. So again, you're doing it for them before you pass that on to the beneficiary. Now, if you die in year 5, you still have money in the IRA, right? So that will go to the beneficiary plus the $177,000. So worst case scenario, $177,000 is the death benefit. If you die before year 10, it's going to be bigger. Does that make sense? I know it's a lot of moving parts, so don't get caught up into it. You're just moving $200,000, you're getting a bonus, they're turning on a rider to fund a 10-pay, and that essentially is going to give you tax-free LTC. So a lot of moving parts. You can buy your hamburger, fries, and drink separately. Our next solution is using income to fund a plan. Let's say you like where your money is. You could take distributions and fund a plan over time. You could do a SPIA, single premium immediate annuity, to fund one of these. And you can do all the administrative yourself. This just does it for you. Again, that's why I like to use the food analogy. It's the McDonald's Happy Meal. Does that make sense? As long as you're 59 and a half up to age 80, this is a fantastic RMD strategy. We could back into the benefits using your RMD or required minimum distribution. Because how many people want to actually use them, right? Not many people tell me, hey, I'm excited about taking my RMDs. So it's a great way to use those RMDs. Yes, sir.
So the examples you've been given, all about 200K. Is that kind of the price of entry for something like that?
I mean, 200,000 is the average premium that I see, but it depends on your age. Literally, I pulled a number out of my hat for these. I just conceptually want you to understand how they work, and then we'll dial it down. What I typically recommend as a starting place, I mean, nobody really insures 100% of anything, do they? I mean, not many people do. What I recommend doing is pull up that Genworth Cost of Care survey, cover at least half of the nursing home risk, and that's typically going to cover up to 100% of home health care, where we all want to receive care, or assisted living. Then you can dial it up or down based off your comfort level. How much of that risk do you want to cover? And then that way we could back into the premiums. That's typically what I do. Hope that makes sense. But great question. Any other questions on the RMD strategy? This is probably the most difficult one because it has a lot of moving parts. But just know that you transfer it and they do everything for you. Yes, sir. Sure. The insurance company is giving you $25,000 to move it from company A to company B. Again, you're not, it's not an investment. I mean, the death benefit's less than what you put into it. It's just an incentive for moving from company A to company B. Plus, when you have an income rider, a lot of those income riders they'll have roll-up amounts because you're not earning any interest on the $200,000. That's kind of like built-in interest that they're giving you. Instead of giving you interest over time, they're giving it to you all up front. Yes, sir.
The RMD still set at 73.
Is it still 73? Or has it gone up? I know it's going up. They keep changing it. Who knows? Yeah, so 70 is 74 now? 73. Okay, got it. I think there's rumor that they're increasing it maybe. But again, taxes are on sale. Great time to use them. Any other questions on that one? I know, again, it's a lot on this example, but I want to make sure everybody understands. We good? All right. All right, here's the easy one. Income. A lot of people don't want you to take $200,000, for example, out of their pocket. You can use income to fund a plan. You can do it anywhere, typically from a 5-pay, meaning you pay 5 payments, all the way to a paid to age 100. If you do a paid to age 100 from a cash flow perspective, you're spreading out the payments over time. Will you pay more? Probably. Well, you will, because the insurance company doesn't have the money up front to invest. But from a cash flow perspective, you can do that. Most commonly, we're going to see 10 pay and paid to age 95. Those are the two most popular, but they're customizable. So you can, if you're retiring in 10 years or 5 years and you wanted to pay it up, you could. If you're retiring in 7 years, you could pay it up in 7 years. The good news is there's 101 different ways to structure these. The bad news is there's 101 different ways to structure these. And that's why they work with my team, so that based on every individual one of you, on what your needs are and your desires are, we'll customize those. But in this example, we have a 62-year-old female. She wants to pay it up in 10 years. Remember what I said earlier, these products are like owning your policies versus renting it. So you might pay a little bit more here, but the premiums are guaranteed to never increase. Whereas on the traditional long-term care, you may or may not see those rise. That is going to buy her $72,000 a year, 6-year income stream specifically for care. So that's $6,000 a month for 6 years. She's young. We're going to put 3% compound inflation on there. What does inflation do? It's going to increase the $6,000 a month and the $72,000 a year to pay for care. So if you need care 10, 15, 20 years from now, it's growing and you're going to get that higher benefit. I think, again, I'm not a mathematician, I think it takes roughly 25 years to double. Anybody a mathematician in here and know that? We're gonna just say it does. I'm pretty sure it does. So in 25 years, her $6,000 a month benefit will now be $12,000 a month to use for long-term care expenses. If she dies and doesn't use it, there's a $144,000 death benefit. So that's really not a lot to write home about, right? If she dies and doesn't use it, the way they're able to give that much in long-term care benefit is give up a little bit of death benefit. So if she dies and doesn't use it, someone is essentially getting her premium back instead of losing that money. Because that's what happens, right, when we buy a traditional plan, is you could potentially pay in for 10, 15, 20, 25 years and never need a dime of long-term care. That's why these solutions are so popular. There's absolutely nothing wrong with traditional long-term care, but a lot of people are willing to pay a little bit more for the guarantees that you get with these plans. Does that make sense? All right. All right, so what's next? Set an appointment with Reed Financial Group. It is not a one-size-fits-all approach. You may not even buy an insurance solution. What I will recommend all of y'all doing is go home, talk to your family. Again, think about that question I keep mentioning. If something were to happen tomorrow, which asset would you liquidate first? It's okay if you want to pay for it. There could be more tax efficient ways, but just know where you're going to get that money from. Where do you want to receive your care? Make sure you tell your family, right? If you want to receive your care in the home, let them know that. Let them know who you want to provide the care. Otherwise, they might be walking you out back and hosing you off, right? Kidding. I mean, you never know, but kidding. So make sure you put a written plan of care on paper, even if you don't do a solution. So I highly encourage that. Hopefully you'll consider, a more tax efficient way to fund your plan, but just make sure you have that written plan of care. Explore all your options, because again, what I went over tonight they're not the only solutions out there. So just know that you might go see April or one of the crew, and they might tell you something completely different than what we talked about tonight. So just know that there are a lot of options out there, and make sure to explore those. All right, and if you complete a plan, as I said, make sure that you give those to your loved ones so they know what your plan is. Last but not least, you have never been younger and healthier than you are today. So don't wait. And with that, I'm going to open up the floor for any questions, and I'm also going to be hanging around. So if you're not comfortable asking a question, please feel free to come find me. I'm happy to answer any questions. There are no questions, the sky is the limit. But I'll open it up now and just see if anybody has any general questions. Yes, ma'am.
Can you speak about things that you give
I absolutely can. That is a great question or a great comment. So there are two types of long-term care policies. By the way, they're both excellent choices. It depends on what you're looking for. There are reimbursement policies and there are indemnity policies. So reimbursement policies, you stroke a check to the care provider and the insurance company pays you back. You submit receipts. Now, don't let that scare you because you can actually, most of the carriers will let you assign the payment to the care provider. However, you have to have a certified caregiver, meaning you cannot have a friend or family member take care of you. Not that you want them to, but you can't. So make sure you understand that if you go with a reimbursement contract. An indemnity plan or a cash indemnity plan is just as it sounds. If you have a $6,000 a month benefit, they're going to send you a $6,000 check. And for all they care, you can go to Vegas and put it on the craps table. You can use it for unskilled caregivers. You can use it for friends or family member. It provides a little bit more flexibility in the home. But again, you can't go wrong with either. I will tell you this, if you have a cash plan, make sure you have great family dynamics, because that can also create some drama as to how you're spending the money. So keep those things in mind when determining which direction you're going to go. I promise you the best plan to have in place is the one you have in force when you need it. You will not go wrong with either of those options. Just know that there's more flexibility with some versus others. So that's something to consider when deciding which road to go down. Thank you for bringing that up. I usually bring that up and I forgot, honestly. Any other questions? I'm sorry? Reimbursement and indemnity. That's a hard one to spit out for me. Just put cash or reimbursement. Yes, ma'am.
So for every one of these plans, it was 2 out of the 6.
It's all uniform. So she asked if for all of these plans, it's 2 of 6. That is correct.
And that's established by your primary care physician?
Yes, your doctor, not the insurance company.
Does it include anything like using drive, any of those?
So driving is not considered an ADL.
Okay.
So if you can't see and you need help putting on your clothes or transferring from one place to the other, that would satisfy 2 of 6 activities a day. Or severe cognitive impairment. How many times have you seen a healthy individual get Alzheimer's and they might be a danger to themselves, but they're really healthy? That's why they live really long, especially for early onset diagnosis. So, that's something to keep in mind. All right. Any great questions? Any others?
Is it possible to have a joint plan, joint custody of a plan, so that the death benefit would go to the spouse, those types of things, or
So,
is it paired and the other's not?
great question. So what he asks is it possible to have a joint plan to where if one person's using it or they don't use it, the money goes to the spouse? Did I say that right? So there are joint policies, which are always going to be second to die, and there are individual plans. You can buy individual plans and get a discount still and do the 2 separate. There's advantages to both. If you have 2 separate plans, if one of you never uses it, you might recoup some of that premium back. So that would be the advantage of having 2 separate plans. And, if you could provide your spouse with a death benefit if you're married. So you can go either way. Sometimes you get a little bit more leverage on the joint policies because it's kind of a discounted rate because they don't have to pay the death benefit until the second insured's death. But that's a great question. All right. Well, thank you so much. I hope you we'll take a little nugget with you tonight. Hope you learned something you didn't already know. And again, I'll stick around so that if you do have any additional questions, please feel free to come ask. Open book.
Awesome job, Alicia. She is truly one of the best in the business, and everybody just saw why. She is one of our valued partners. I think you can all understand why we've chosen to partner with Alicia and FIG for that part of what we do for our clients. So what we're going to do now is all to do with the $50 gift card. So it's going to be a test on everything that no, I'm just kidding. Eyes got really really big. No test, I promise. Nothing like that. This is the green sheet here. So this is your way to communicate to us about the topics that are most important to you and what you would like our assistance with. We're also going to go over the bottom part here. We're going to come around and collect these, and then we're going to do a drawing for a $50 gift card to Barebones. So you can come back here. It's going to be excellent. You're going to want to come back. How many people have been to Barebones before? Okay, so a couple. For the new people that haven't been here, you're in for a treat. This place is fantastic, and they just opened a restaurant next door that we would highly recommend as well. All right, so on this response form here, there's a couple of different areas. Right at the very top, it's going to ask you what plan you currently have for long-term care. So it says, I currently have long-term care insurance, which is the traditional long-term care, like Alicia just talked about. Asset-based long-term care plan, which she also touched on as well, or no long-term care plan. So mark one of those right there. This is also our way to let the IRS know that we didn't just have a big party with our friends and family. This is actually a business event. So fill these out for us, please. Also, I would like to explore a second opinion on. So what we're going to do today, as soon as we walk out of here, we're going to pick up our phones, and there's going to be 5 or 6 text messages. There's going to be maybe 100 emails. And what we talked about tonight is going to become less and less and less important. That's just the human nature. This is an incredibly important topic. You've taken an entire night to spend with us to talk about something that is not that fun to talk about. So I commend you for making the effort and putting yourself first and your family first and making this a priority. So what we're going to do today, we've carved out several times on our calendar in the next couple of weeks just for this group, so that we can schedule what we call a strategy call. Takes about 15, maybe 20 minutes, and talk about your particular situation. Now, a lot of our clients are in attendance tonight. Some of you already have reviews scheduled, so we'll cover this as part of those reviews. For those that don't have a review in the next couple of months as a part of your annual review process, we'll go ahead and schedule a strategy call and talk to you about that. For the other folks in the room, we'll schedule a strategy call to talk about your particular situation. And as a part of that, we're going to explore the topics that you tell us you want us to explore. So there's a couple of different things here. So if you have an existing long-term care policy and you want to know a little bit more maybe about how it works, if it's still in your best interest to keep that, if it's any good anymore, maybe it's a little bit older, but you don't know if you should keep it, if you should go a different direction, check that box, and that's something that we'll talk to you about. Affordability of long-term care strategies. So again, what is in your best interest? What is a good fit for you and your family? That's something that we can also cover. Potential tax implications of long-term care. Now, Alicia went over a ton of different topics here. We don't expect you to remember all of those or try and figure it all out. That's what we're here for. This is what we specialize in. So we can talk about how that will affect you. Some different topics too, something that we specialize in that's maybe a little bit different than other advisors is retirement income planning. So how many people in the room have a doctor? Hopefully everybody, right? How many people have more than one doctor? Why do you have more than one doctor? I thought you already had one doctor. Why do you need another one? Specialist? Exactly. So that's what we are. We're specialists in the financial arena, and we're specialists in retirement income planning as well as long-term care. We take a more holistic wealth management approach than just investment management. So a lot of times when we start talking to people for the first time, they ask, why hasn't our advisor talked to us about this? And it's just because that's not what they do. They do investment management, and that's it. We take a little bit, like I said, a little bit more of a different approach. We're holistic wealth. We focus on the whole picture there. So if you have an advisor, they might not specialize in this area. We're happy to set that call with you and talk about how we can help with maybe a little bit different approach for these type things. Retirement income planning, so that's going to be Social Security maximization. Incredibly important, considering Social Security is potentially running into some issues in the near future. Income tax minimization, and survivorship income planning. So those are a part of the income planning that we do with our clients. Going over to the next side, updates on tax laws / retirement rule changes. So Secure Act and Secure 2.0 are some of the most sweeping changes to retirement, savings, the decumulation phase that we've ever had in this country. A lot of times, people don't know what applies to them. When am I even supposed to take an RMD? That's even really confusing now because they've changed the goalposts so many times. So we'll talk to you about how those might affect you and what planning we can do to help you with. Market volatility and risk appropriate investing. So something that we also do is, here comes the train again. Something that we also do is called a stress test. So we look at your current portfolio. For those that we're not doing investment management with yet, we look at your current portfolio and we put it through what's called a stress test. How is market volatility going to affect not only your balance, but also the income that you need and want to take from those accounts? Structured income notes. So if you're a client of ours, you know most likely how these work and how we utilize them. They're a part of a holistic income plan that we put together, as well as a bond replacement. So rates have come up a little bit for that, but structured notes are going to generate anywhere from 9 to 13%. So those are a very good fit for a more holistic income plan that we can put together. Year-end checklist. So April and I are a part of the Ed Slott Elite IRA Advisor Group. So Ed Slott is a IRA distribution expert. And this is all part of the getting back down the mountain safely. I love that, Alicia. That was a perfect example of what we do and what we've chosen to specialize in. And a part of that is being an Ed Slott Elite IRA advisor and making sure that we're getting the money that we want to get out of that, or that we have to get out of that, in the most tax efficient way possible. So this year-end checklist is going to tell us and tell you what needs to be done, what can be done before the end of the year. It's going to come fast. I think there's, Vicki, 9 more Fridays? She always has the count. 9 more Fridays before Christmas. I love it. What is it, 9, 8, 10? 9, I think. It's crazy. It's going to happen before we know it. So what we're doing is encouraging people to do that year-end tax planning now, before stuff gets busy, before the holidays, and that checklist can certainly help with that. So if you would, check, yes, I would like a strategy call for a second opinion. We will go ahead and schedule that today. Vicki and Rebecca are going to help us with that. If you could circle 2 to 3 times at the bottom of this green sheet so that we can try and fit everybody in a time that'll work for all of us. Circle 2 or 3 of these. We'll come around, we're going to pick these up and we'll get you scheduled. We'll give you a card that will be a reminder. And then Vicki and Rebecca will also give you a call and remind you about those scheduled times. All right. I believe that's it. Again, thank you so much. We're going to have the food. I think I smell it coming out right now. We're going to have the food coming in just a couple of minutes. We'll be around for questions, the whole team. You've got all of us, which is a special occasion tonight. So please don't hesitate to come and ask questions and come and hang out with us and enjoy your meal. Thanks for being here.